Uh, Autoscaling also sorry is a method using cloud computing that dynamically adjusts the amount of computational resources in
Okay.
a server farm.
Okay. Nice one. Thanks for reading up that. So, I believe it's quite easy to understand. It's very, very easy to. Auto scaling is very simple. Very, very simple. So, the way auto scaling works, um, it works in such a way that we all know about. US is one. This is the entire region. I tagged this the entire region. So inside a particular region, um, you have availability zones. Yeah, these are the availability zones. Availability zone 1A and 1B. So, and inside an availability zone, you could create a virtual private connection, a VPC. You remember when anytime we are trying to create like an EC2 instance, we used to attach it to a VPC. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and inside the VPC, we have either a public. In fact, we have both, or you can choose to attach your EB. I mean your EC2. Let me tag this guy EC2. EC2. This is your EC2, and this is EC2 here too. We might not waste much time today, but I would like us to go through it so that you understand very well. I hope you are recording.
Yes.
Okay. So we have public subnets and we also have private subnets in a VPC. In a VPC. So public subnets, what the difference between public subnet and private subnet is we have been working with public subnet all along, and that's why we are able to reach any resource, I mean any application that we deploy in our EC2, we're able to reach it from the internet because this guy called public subnet has access to the internet gateway, internet. I hope I'm writing this well for you to understand. Don't mind my handwriting. Just pick the. So public subnet has access to the internet. It has access to the internet. So anything you deploy on this environment, inside the public subnet, you can access it via the internet. Once you have granted the necessary permission, you can access it via the internet. But in a private subnet is not connected to the internet. So whatever you deploy in private subnet cannot be accessed from the internet. So if you deploy your application inside a private subnet now, it's not possible for you to access it via the internet, no matter what permission you grant to the EC2 instance, no matter what the permission you grant to any user, you can't access this via the you can't these guys can't access. These guys are the guys on the internet. They are guys they are your customers. They are the people that access your application, like I always explained. So they cannot have access to any application that you're deployed on in the private subnet, all because it doesn't have access to the internet. But if you deploy application on the public subnet, just like you have on the two sides, they would be able to have access to such. So we will still get to a topic where we'll discuss virtual private VPC, virtual private connection. Do I get that correctly? Let me see. Let me see so that I won't
Virtual
be saying
private
rubbish.
cloud, I think.
Virtual private cloud. Is it cloud? Yeah, cloud. Virtual private cloud. So we'll get to a point where we'll discuss virtual private cloud better, so you understand what it's doing and how you can set up your own public subnet and your private subnet. So, but for now, we are still using the default VPC. We are still using the default VPC presently. But at one point, you know, if you are working with a company, most times, in fact, 90% of the time, you would be working with your own customized VPC and not the default VPC that AWS has provided. You have to work with your own. If you want your applications to be private to you, like you want to um, control access to your application to the maximum, it has to be deployed on the you have to create your own virtual private cloud. You have to customize your own virtual private cloud. So we'll still get to that. We are coming to that. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 classes, we'll get there. But today, we'll still stick with the default VPC that AWS has provided. Okay, so what's the understanding of today's class? Like auto scaling group is a technique is a technique um, is a technique whereby resources are configured to automatically scale up or down. So, like you read out, auto scaling allows your resources to easily scale up or down, easily increase or decrease. So, I'm using this word so that you can understand what I mean. So now, for example, you have um you have an EC2 instance deployed in your public subnet, and maybe after 2 hours of deployment, you notice that you now have 1,000 people accessing your resources. I mean your application that you deployed on EC2. Now, what will happen if at a particular point in time this EC2 instance or the application you deployed has been overcrowded? Like imagine you having 1,000 people connecting to an application, and probably the resources configured on the application is not enough to um, carry 1,000 people at the same time. The application might go down. But with auto scaling, the application will automatically, it would create another instance, another EC2 instance. That's what we call auto scaling. It will automatically create another EC2 instance based on the pre-configured rule. It will automatically create another EC2 instance such that since a load balancer is in place, you understand? You know the concept of load balancing that we did
Yeah.
during the last class.
Yes.
With the help of the load balancer, you are able to now route traffic between the two available EC2 instances. So it's not like you will be the one to create this, but based on the pre-configured rule, this would automatically create by itself. Of course, you must have generated what's it called? You remember what we generated during the last class? Our AMI, Amazon Machine Image, that would facilitate the creation of this new EC2 instance.
Okay,
By the
but
time
sir,
this,
what do you mean by based on the configured rule? Are we to
yeah,
configure such
I
rule
like
or
that
something?
question. Based on configuration means, what I mean by based on configuration
Yeah.
is, this thing cannot just happen by itself.
Okay.
It must have been pre-configured to say, okay, when this happens, let this action take place. You understand? So that's what I mean by based on pre-configured rule.
By
So what
us, right? We configure this ourselves.
you would configure the auto scaling group by yourself.
Okay.
You would configure the auto scaling group by yourself. So now, let me explain further. Now, look at this. On a normal day, like I explained during the last class, users on the internet will not access your EC2 instance directly, but they will be accessing your application via what? the load balancer. They'll be accessing your application via the load balancer. That's one. This one is settled. Now, EC2 is, Elastic Load Balancer is taking resources, is routing between AZ1A and AZ1B, availability zone 1A and 1B. Now, this being said, so that means this Elastic Load Balancer will be shuttling between um, this is it application that you have deployed on AZ1A, an application that you have deployed in AZ1B. Like I also mentioned, at least you should have your application deployed, a load balanced application. If you are load balancing your application, you should have your application deployed in at least 2 availability zones. And guys, let me quickly chip this in. We'll be having a demo on, I don't know which date yet. I think either on Saturday or Sunday. We'll be having a demo, and we are inviting some guys, like some top guys, to come and see your demo session. So they want to see what you have achieved so far and what you can do now. So I don't know if you will be able to get to auto scaling. Well, if you have perfected your skills, you can chat me up before Saturday to let me know you have perfected your skills up to today's class. But if not, you can stop at the last class. You can just deploy an application and load balance it. Do you understand?
Okay.
So, but I have these two, the two of you, Chelsea and Benny, present in this class as my key persons for that demo. So, you could, I would think that I wouldn't want a situation whereby it would take so much time, in the class. So, what I would prefer is that you guys have deployed the application, you have load balanced it, and it's working already. So you will now take us through your deployments. You get that? So
Yeah.
it will have been working already by Saturday. So when the guys come in, what you just do is take us through your deployment from A to Z. What you did, the configurations you put in place to make the application work on the load balancer. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's prepare towards that. So, and guys,
You said on
I don't
Sunday,
know,
right?
I don't know what will happen after then, but it could be an opportunity for you guys. So just put in your best. That's all I can say.
Okay, but you're not sure whether it's Saturday or Sunday.
Which day should we choose? And from information I gathered, they said it should be around 9 p.m. in the night. So, which day will you prefer, Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday is best for me.
What about Chelsea?
Yeah, Sunday is okay too.
Okay, so that means our class will not be holding by 7 p.m. on Sunday. It will be holding by 9 p.m.
Okay.
Or I can force them to do it 7 p.m. if you don't mind. Because I will be going to work on Monday, and I would love to finish this in that Sunday class on time so I can get some rest. So I would prefer that 7 o'clock if you ask me. But I will try to push for 7 o'clock. But if we can't get those guys to come in by 7 o'clock, that means we'll do 9 o'clock then. But let's prepare for the two schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. So now let's continue. Now, like I mentioned, elastic load balancer would be shuttling between these guys. So if the guys trying to access, like you have 10, assuming you have 10 guys trying to access your application, load balancer will distribute the traffic such that 5 guys will go here, 5 guys would access this. They will be accessing the same resources. Of course, you have deployed the same resource on on the two environments. Now, where does the auto scaling group come in? Where will it come in? Now, the auto scaling group come in here. This is where you have your auto scaling group. And this auto scaling group is very, very is very, very powerful in the sense that let me write this. Just a minute. ASG. So just you can put it like completely on your own. Probably your notes. Auto scaling group. This ASG means auto scaling group. ELB, elastic load balancer. So I'm going to connect this to elastic load balancer connects to the auto scaling group. Okay. So this is how the connection works. And this guy comes here as well because um he's speaking to the two environments. So this is an arrow, this is an arrow as well, speaking to the two sides. So what happens now is now let's assume we have 2,000 people coming from the internet trying to access our application. So apparently, private subnet is not at work now because we did not configure anything for private. And I told you guys you can only access your public subnet from the internet. You can't access your private subnet. So that means we wouldn't be using this today. You can only deploy. I think by the time you get there, you will know. You can deploy example of things you can deploy here. You can deploy an application here as well. It's not like you can't deploy an application here, but there are some configurations that will go into place for your users to be able to view your application. And of course, assuming you created your own virtual private cloud and it's working for your own company alone, if it's supposed to be for your own company alone, definitely people within your company would be able to access applications deployed in the private network, in the private subnet. Definitely, they will be able to access it because they are within the network. They are within the network. But anybody outside will not be able to access this guy. So they will only be able to access this with necessary permissions granted. Okay, let's move on. So what happens now is assuming you have 2,000 guys here, you have 2,000 guys trying to access your application, and your load balancer has distributed 1,000 to this side and 1,000 to the 1B availability zone. Okay, assuming you now have more people coming in, and probably okay, can you guys right click on your taskbar now? I want you to check something. An example of how you can auto scale. Let me right click on my own taskbar as well, and I'll click on task manager. I don't know if Benny will have that. I think you should have that too. Task manager on, because I know you are using
Yeah,
a
I'm
different
just.
laptop. So I'm going to click on this. I want to show you something on my system, and that's the way it works on the server as well. So look at this. I'll click on performance. Now look at my CPU. Look at my CPU. Look at my memory. The memory of my system. Look at my disk usage. Look at, the current disk usage. The way I'm working now, this is the maximum disk usage. It's not using much because I'm not doing so much work at the moment, and I didn't open so many applications. Now this is my Wi-Fi connection. Look at this. If I click on this now, you will see how my connection is going up and down, and um the latency of my network, the throughput of my network, wireless connection. Now let me show you something now. Now for CPU, for my CPU usage, I've opened like how many applications on this system. I opened Google Chrome, I opened Teams, I opened this guy, I opened this guy, and that's all I opened. Look at this. I only have 14, so it's shuttling between 14, 15 percent CPU usage. But now, you know, if I have like, assuming I make my system a server now, and I have like 2,000 people trying to access a resource on my system, you can imagine what my CPU usage will be reading. My CPU usage might be reading maybe 60, 50%, 70%. In fact, in some cases, you could have 100%. And once your CPU usage has reached 100%, it's a red flag. It's a red flag. In fact, you should set a limit to say, okay, once my CPU usage has reached a particular level, something else should happen. Like you should even kill some resource, some services that is running on your system. So the same way with memory. If you are using, if probably you deployed an application on a server and the memory usage has reached maybe like 80%, guy, you, your application will be damn slow. Definitely, application will be slow at that particular point in time. So those are the kind of things you should look out for, especially when you are doing auto scaling configuration. You should look out for your CPU usage, your memory usage, and also the number of people coming into your application. You should be mindful of them as well. So now let me minimize that. Now, assuming I now have, after like 2000, 1000 accessing this application, 1000 accessing the application deployed here, I now have, say, okay, assuming I'm also having just one EC2 instance deployed on, one EC2 instance deployed each on the two availability zones. Or peradventure, I have only one deployed on AZ1A, availability zone 1A, and I already have like 2000 accessing the result. So this guy will almost be going dead at that particular point in time, having 2000 people accessing the resource deployed on this availability zone. So what now happens? What is going to happen? Well, I wouldn't want to do it in such a way that I will be explaining using one EC2 instance because I'm using a load balancer here. So it doesn't make sense. I explain it with one instance after using load balancer. So what is it load balancing? But you can actually configure your system to currently to start running with one. So when it has reached a particular limit, let it run with a load balancer. I mean, with an ASG. What do I call ASG again?
Auto scaling group.
Okay, thank you. With an auto scaling group, it automatically auto scale. So once it auto scale, immediately the load balancer also kickstarts its work because it has auto scaled. It has scaled up. It can either scale up or down. Mm. So now let me explain using the two availability zone. So let me assume now that I have deployed um one EC2 instance here and another EC2 instance here, each carrying the same application, each hosting the same application. Now, 2,000 people are trying to access my application. 1,000 goes here and 1,000 goes here, and let's assume that's the maximum they can take. Or let's not even assume that's the maximum that they can take. But after accepting 1,000 to both sides, my CPU usage has gone up to maybe like 80% or 70%. Let's put it that way. The system starts getting slow. The application reachability starts going down. People would start experiencing downtime at their own end because the number of people on the server is more than what is expected. Now, what the auto scaling group does is going to do is it picks from your AMI. It goes to look for your AMI that you have configured for it to use. It goes to look for your AMI and provision a new EC2 instance. It provisions a new EC2 instance. So what ASG will do is it will go and provision a new EC2 instance in one of your availability zone, while putting into consideration what you have on both sides so that it will not be more than each other. So it will go and provision a new EC2 instance here with the same configuration that you have before, with the same configuration that you have for the existing EC2 instance. It will provision a new one and now start routing traffic to the new EC2 instance. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way ASG works. So assuming now, after spanning like maybe you don't have 2,500 users accessing your application and it has created a new one. Now, maybe at a particular point in time, it now drops back to 1,500 or 1,000. 1,000 users trying to access your application, what will auto scaling group do again? Auto scaling group would stop one of the, it would bring the resource down again, maybe by putting off this guy, this EBS2. It will put off maybe one from here as well. And because you're having 1,000 people accessing your application now, you need less resources. So it would auto scale down by itself. It will auto scale down by itself. It will auto scale up by itself, then auto scale down by itself based on the number of resources, the number of used resources in your environment. I hope we all understand. So, assuming you now have 70% CPU usage, just like I showed you on my task manager, 70% CPU usage, CPU utilization. I'll try to write CPU. CP. It's as simple as that, my people. So, CPU utilization, util. That's an example of how you can, the things you can look out for to auto scale. Once it has reached maybe like 60, depending on what your company wants anyway. Once it has reached maybe like 50, 60, and the criticality of the application as well. Assuming it's a payment application, you won't even want it to get to 70. Because if it gets to 70, something else might have started happening. And your users will start complaining that, oh, we can't access your application, we can't do this, we can't do that. So, and you would like to avoid that. So it will be good, it will be nice to have had a nice configuration on ground so that you avoid such noise at the end of the day. So now, I think we can move into start creating stuffs now. Let's start creating stuffs. Let's just the way we have this diagram. Let's create. Let's create. And the first thing I'm going to, you know where we will start from? Do you know where we will start from?
Where?
We are going to start, before you start auto scaling, that means you had provisioned in fact, before you are able to connect your load balancer, of course, you must have created your EC2 instance. And before you get an EC2 instance, you have a bucket somewhere that is hosting that is holding your code that you want to deploy in this. So you need to first configure your EC2 instance, the first EC2 instance. Create your load balancer security group, your EC, your what's it called? Your
Elastic block storage.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
The EBS or
Yeah, you of course, by the time you create your EC2, you already have EBS connected to it.
okay.
Yeah. So I think the last thing that we would do would be the auto scaling group. That would be the last thing that we'll do. So we'll start from the least to the highest. So let's move.
Okay.
So I'm going to log into my AWS console now. AWS console. I'm signing into console now. So I'll sign into my normal IAM user. My MFA code. Okay, just a minute. What? Why not? Has it changed? Okay, since my password is not correct. Let me see. Okay, it's not correct. So my password remains 3 days to expire. Okay. I think I might need to change that password anytime from now. So I'm selecting Northern Virginia region, US is one, like I always do. I prefer that. Okay, so let's start from our S3 buckets. There are some. I'm sure there are some. That is it I am rule? Is it I am rule? Yeah, the rule. I think that role is still there for me. So I think I did not delete the last role that I used. So I'm going to be using the same role again. I believe you guys wouldn't have deleted your own as well. So that role that has S3 and SSM,
Okay.
we'll keep using that role. So you don't need to delete that role. So let me see. AC2. Okay, so this guy. I would keep using this guy. So I think I can just delete this guy and this guy because this other one will be doing the same work. So I don't need to duplicate all of them. So I'll be using this. So I can as well check my um let me see where can I see my security policy EC2. I'm looking for my security group. So let me see if I need to create a new security group or I use the existing one, at least for the sake of this class. You can see where you can get your EC2, your security group now. Okay, so let me see. So I have several security groups that I've created already. So I'm going to okay, so for load balancer, I'm going to use this security group for my load balancer. Load balancer SG. I'm going to use that for my load balancer. So I don't. I'm just trying to show you so that we don't start doing all those again all over. But it doesn't affect anything. We can always use it. But I just feel we are getting past that now, so we can do new stuff with our time. So I can use I think latest SG. I can pick any of these other guys. Latest SG, new web server SG, fresh SG. Yeah, I can use any of these for my. So let's move. Let's move. So let's check my S3 bucket as well. Let me see if I have anything I can use in S3 buckets so that I won't create it afresh. So let me see what is in my. If I have a code in here, I may not create it. I may not create a fresh S3 bucket. So I have a code here. So I can just make use of this code. You understand?
Yeah.
Benny,
Yes.
Chelsea.
Yes.
Yeah, I can make use of this. So I don't need to create a fresh one. So let's move on to create our EC2 instance then. So we have S3 buckets in place. We have the code inside of it. So we don't need to start creating and uploading our codes again. So let's just look for EC2 and create our instance. Okay, so you can see that I have no EC2 instance running. So I can choose a key pair. Let me see if I have key pairs as well. But that one doesn't even mean anything. I can always create that anytime. Okay, I can use fresh key pair, which we used during the last class. So I don't need to create a fresh key. So because if I keep creating, it will keep loading them inside this key pair page, which I wouldn't want to keep so much. So let me go to EC2 instance and let's start work. So I'm going to launch my instance now. Let's launch instance. That's the first thing. Okay, that's the next thing to do. We have our S3 bucket in place. We have um our policies. I am rule in place. So what do we name this? Auto auto scaling web server. So let me name it that. Auto scaling web server, so that you understand what we are using it for. That's just by the way. You might not name it that. You might not name it that. So I just named it that so that we can understand what we are using it for. Even remove server. So I will just leave it at auto scaling web server. Okay, let's move on. So you remember this selection, Amazon Linux. Let's leave it at that. Amazon Linux 2 AMI, kernel 5.10. Let's leave it at that. Moving on. T2 micro. We leave instance type as T2 micro as well. So I said we want to use one of our key pairs. So let me select fresh key pair if we have it. I'm going to select fresh key pair. But since I still have it somewhere, so I don't need to create a fresh one. So look at this. Can you see that this is our VPC now? This is a default VPC. So we are going to be using default VPC. But when we want to customize it for our own use or for our company's use, we can always create a customized VPC, or we'll get there as well. So this default guy is what we're going to be using. So for our subnets, this is where we are selecting our subnets. You can create different subnets under your own VPC as well. But today we'll be using the subnet as provided here. We'll be using the subnet as provided here. So I'm going to be selecting one A, like I always do. 1A. So I'm going to leave this as enabled, of course. Then security group. I said I'm going to use an existing security group. I'm going to use, which one did I say I wanted to use the other time? I think I said I wanted to use
The load balance G.
load balanced SG is for load balancer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's for load balancer. So I think I'm trying to remember which one did I say I wanted. So we can actually use any of these new security group, fresh SG, latest SG, new web service G. So let me just use this. Let me use this new. So depending on what you have at your own end. So far, you know what you used it for. You can choose any. So I'm using new web SG. So I can always check what I configured inside of it as well. Maybe by the time we'll.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So we can't use the security group for our load balancer as for this one.
You configured a different thing for the load balancer.
Yeah.
You remember?
Okay. Yeah.
You know what we did for the load balancer during the last class was to grant the load balancer only access to the EC2 instance. You remember? So
Yeah.
you giving your EC2 instance load balancer security group would only it wouldn't even work. It won't work. That means you won't be able to access your application properly.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So let's move on. Let me see what is in advanced network. We're not touching anything here. So let's on the configuration. Configure storage. We'll leave this as 8 gig as usual. Leave this as 8 gig. So okay, let me open advanced detail. Advanced detail. We have domain join directory. We are not doing anything there. So I am instance profile. I'm going to select okay, I said I'm going to select this EC2 S3 SSM access. So I'm selecting this for my role. So let's move on. And you know the reason why I selected this. It has S3 full access, then it has session manager access as well. So I think those are the two major permissions that we granted to EC2 so far. So let's move on. Shutdown behavior. shutdown behavior. Like I always want to terminate once I shut down. What else? What else? What else? Nothing, 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 nothing. So for my user data, I'm going to duplicate this. I want to pick something from. So I want to, though the last one I ran, I don't know why, it did not run the script. But I want to try it again. Let's try to run the script again. Um, Notepad plus plus. Let me go and bring the script from me. That Linux script. You guys remember the Linux script?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm bringing this guy again. Copying this guy, this place. So let me check the name of my. I think this is the name of my bucket, right? I think that should be the name of my bucket. S3. Let's check the name of my bucket. I opened this guy because of the name of my bucket. The duplicate I did was because of the name of my bucket. I wanted to check the name of that bucket. Okay, my personal S3TT. Yeah, I think that's it. My personal S3. So good. So let's move on.
Uh,
So let's move.
about the security group, did you give it a specific access? The one you used?
We are using. I used an existing security group, so that means the existing access is what I'm going to be using.
Yeah.
So we
So
can always check.
what
You can always
access did
check
you
the
give it?
access later.
Okay.
Yeah, you can always check the access and reconfigure to suit purpose later.
Okay. But
Yeah.
the access you gave to this security group you used, like, can you
Mm.
remember the access?
So look at this. Let's go and look for that access. Sef.
Okay.
Let's go to where the security group is. Let's go and check what access we have in there. Though it's not so far you have used the security group before, so it's not compulsory though. But let's check it for we selected this new web self security group, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's open it up. So let's check the access that is in there. Okay, can you see this?
Okay.
We have HTTP access. Let me edit inbound row. Can you see that?
Yes.
We have HTTP access from the internet. We have HTTPS, okay, both HTTP and HTTPS from the internet. So the only one I can re-edit is this SSH because I believe my IP address must have changed. So I can just remove this and bring it back so that it will give me my new. I'm not sure. Did it change? I'm not sure, but that's the only thing you can just do since you want to only grant your laptop or your workstation access to SSH. So I'm going to save the rule. So that's the only thing I can just do here. So let's continue. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's move on and launch. I think we are good to launch our security, our EC2 instance now. So let's move as fast as possible. Okay. All right. So let me launch my instance. So we have successfully launched our EC2 instance. So let's see. Okay, so it's pending now. It's pending now. So let's hold on for it to finish. Let's wait for it to finish up. Oops. So some things I can do ahead of time. Let me see. What can I do ahead? I mean, can I create my Let me see if I can create my load balancer ahead of time. So we'll use one stone to kill two birds. So let's search for our load balance. While the other one is provisioning, let's go to load balancer. Let's start provisioning our load balancer. So I'm going to create a load balancer. Are you following?
Yeah.
Okay. So like we are creating an application load balancer. I'm going to click on create for application load balancer. So I'm going to give it a name. So I can give it auto scaling load balancer. Auto scaling LB. So it's going to be internet facing. And my VPC, I'm going to leave it as default, like Then this mapping, I'm going to be mapping it to all availability zone. So as to make it available in all availability zone. Okay, selected all. So for the security group, I'm going to select the load balancer security group here. Load balancer security group. So this is it. Load balancer LSG. So I'm going to remove this default. So I'm using load balancer LSG. Okay.
Yep.
Let's move on. So then the HTTP ports, we'll leave this listener as 80. We'll create a target group from here. Let's create a target group. We only created one what was it called? We only created one EC2 instance and we want to load balance. I hope you are watching what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me see what we have here. Traffic ports here. I'm going to reduce this to 2 like I did during the last class. Okay. So I can give this a tag as well. I love tags somehow. So name auto scaling targets. So I'm going to click on next. What else? Auto scaling targets. Okay. Okay. So for this, I'm not going to include anything as pending. The last class we had two that want to load balance, and we added the two as pending targets that dropped here, that dropped in review targets. Can you remember?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but today, because I'm trying to create an auto scaling group, I'm not going to drop anything. I'm not going to include them as pending. So I will leave it as blank. I'm not going to add anything. So I'm going to create my target group. Okay, my target group was created successfully. So I can close this page. So let me refresh this and select my target group, auto scaling targets. Okay,
Yeah.
moving on. Moving on. Moving on. These tags, I'm not going to add any tags there, it's optional. So let's see what we have done. Let's see what we have done. Okay, so let me create load balancer. Create load balancer. Okay, so my load balancer has been created successfully. You guys know this already. So we don't need to stress much on load balancer or EC2. So it's just the same way you create, but the only thing is I did not add the targets to the I did not add the EC2 instance to my target, though I created a target group for the load balancer. So now let's see, this guy should have finished by now. So let's confirm if it's working. Let's confirm if it's working. Let's confirm so that if it's not working, we'll go and run our command by ourselves. So it's not working. It's not working. So that means we need to run that command by ourselves. So let me connect. I'll run the command. I don't know why it's not running, and it has worked before now. So why is it not running?
Maybe there's a mistake on the comment.
I don't. I'm not sure if we should call it a mistake, but I feel like, look at this. On a normal day, if you run this update before, it doesn't run any update because it was up to date before. I mean, this what's it called? This terminal was up to date before, but if you run it now, it's now seeing updates. Look at it. It's seeing updates now. So I feel this is the reason why the guy has not been running. I feel like this is because since this update starts running, that was when I noticed that the command, the commands you put in user data also stopped running as well. So I feel this could be the reason, though I wouldn't say it might be any other thing. It might be any other. But let's just run our command and make sure the application works. So the way you guys are learning, I also have I also train myself as well as much as possible. You know, if I do not train myself, there's nothing I'm bringing to you guys. So I have to keep myself up to date as well.
Okay.
So let's do the learning together. Let's achieve things together. If there's nothing to gain in it, I won't be doing it as well. Because I know there's something that I would definitely benefit from the knowledge I'm sharing. And of course, I'm aiming higher as well. And I'm sure one day AWS will look for me as well.
Yeah, they will.
Definitely. They will definitely look for me. I work in AWS, trust me.
Yep. I'll see you there.
Yeah, that's the spirit. So I'm gonna enable this. Let me check if it's enabled now. Okay, so it's enabled. So let's copy uh let's copy this guy. Now let's run our application. I can close this guy now. It's not doing anything again. I can close this guy and come back to this place. Let me copy this. Now it should work now. Okay, so the application is working now. Now let's go back to our load balancer. Let's see if it's fully provisioned. Okay, it's active now. Load balancer is active now. So what else do we need to do? Let's go and create AMI. because from the AMI is I mean auto scaling group would be creating more resources, more EC2 instance using the AMI. So let's create our AMI for the auto scaling group to work with.
Okay.
Okay, so from images, image and templates, I'm going to create image. I'll call it auto scaling image img. So I'm going to leave this configuration the way it is. What else? What else do I need to change? I'm not changing any other thing. So I'm going to create image. Nothing much here. You guys know this already. So my image should be up now. So let me check if my image is actually up. Look at this. This is where image is AMI under AMI,
Okay.
and this is the guy I created. So I can just copy this guy and give this guy the name as well. So save. Yeah. So let's see. See, it's still pending. So let's see. Let's wait for this guy to be done before we start working on our auto scaling group. Auto scaling group. So what have we done? We've created our EC2 instance, S3 bucket, EC2 instance, EC2. I mean, our application is running already on EC2 instance. We did not test it with load balancer because we did not add anything to load balancer. We only provision the load balancer with the targets. You understand?
Yeah.
We only provision the load balancer with the targets, but we didn't add any EC2 instance to the target. So we can't run the application with the load balancer yet because nothing is going to run. But our application is actually working on its own, on EC2 instance. So let's see. This is still pending. Okay. Let me go back here. So I'm going to my EC2 instance. I'm waiting for this guy to be done as well. So let me see. So this is where you can find your auto scaling group. This is where you can find the auto scaling.
Okay.
Can you see that we have almost made use of, I think when we started, somebody asked a question that when are we going to use all this? Can you see that we have used almost everything we have under EC2 now?
Yeah.
Almost every sub that we have under EC2, we have almost used everything. I think the place we have not touched is we have touched security group. We have not touched elastic IP. We have not touched placement group and network interface. We've done load balancer, we've done target group. We are doing auto scaling today. Volume, EBS. EBS is attached on almost every other day. Snapshots. You guys might not know that you are taking snapshots, but snapshot is actually working automatically by itself. You don't need to provision it sometimes, but sometimes you need to provision it. But it's working. And I will show you how I know it's working very soon.
Okay.
So AMI, we have done AMI. Of course, you know what AMI does. So instance type, you can launch instance from a template. Though we didn't do this, but it's something that you can try out. Sports requests, we didn't do this because we don't actually need it now. Don't need it now. Savings plan, reserved instances as well. We don't need it now. We are not reserving any. Reserved instances when you want to provision an instance ahead of time, so that you will be able to reduce the cost of provisioning that resource. So that would be on a page. It's like a savings plan as well. So you can reserve an instance to say, okay, I want to use this instance next year, but you have already reserved it today. So it will come at a lower price, yeah, at a cheaper price for you. So that's what this reserved instance is. So dedicated host as well. Dedicated host is just like you having a host of your own, like you, it's been set aside for you. So let me see what my AMI is doing. I think AMI should almost be done now, if not done. So it's available now. It's available now. So we can go to our auto scaling um, side now. So let me see. Let's click on auto scaling group and start creating our auto scaling group. Now, look at this. Create auto scaling group. Let's go down. Let's see if we have any other thing to look at here. But create auto scaling group. So I'll give my auto scaling group a name. Auto scaling web web ASG. Or I can just do soft web ASG. What web auto scaling group or web server auto scaling group. So let me do that. So there are two ways. There are two ways to launch your um to provision your auto scaling group. Either you launch a template or you switch to launch configuration. So, but we are going to be using launch configuration. So when you get here, just click on switch to launch configuration. Switch to launch configuration. So I switched to launch configuration. So we have launch configuration now. So let me see. I don't have any launch configuration in place. So I'll click on create a launch configuration. Create, look at this. You can actually create a launch configuration separately first before you start your ASG. You understand? You can create it separately before you start your ASG so that when you get here, you can just drop down and select your launch configuration. I can as well go back and start from there, but let's just create launch configuration from it to take us to another page. Okay, so what's my launch configuration name? I'm going to name it auto, don't mind me, or auto scaling, or ASG launch config. Yeah, let me use that. ASG launch config. Don't mind me. I want to just make the guy very unique. Okay, so look at the next thing. What is the next thing that we have here? Amazon machine image. So it's this guy wants us to select an AMI that we want to be running from. So, and you remember we've created an AMI already.
Yeah.
So, assuming we did not create an AMI, that means we have to go back and start creating AMI. So, I've already created our AMI. So, I'm just going to select the AMI here. So, this is the AMI, auto scaling image, IMG. That was the one I created. So, I'm going to select that. So, what else? I want to select instance type. Should I select instance type?
Yeah.
Mm.
You wanted to say something?
No, no, no.
Okay. Let me see. Do I need this instance type? Let me see. Let me see. Do I need this instance type? Okay, I think I need it too. Where is my T2 micro? T2 dot micro. Yeah, I need it. Look at this.
So this
T2.
is the one available for the free tier, right?
Yeah. This is the one that is available for free tier. Okay, let's see. Let's check very well before we start selecting what is not applicable to us. Yeah, it's T2 micro. You remember now?
Yeah, yeah.
T2 micro. So we are going to just T2 dot micro. So that's the guy. So I've selected T2 micro. So moving on, let's see. additional configuration, select an IAM instance profile. IAM instance profile. So which profile are we giving this? So I'm giving this guy what sort of instance profile can I give this? What sort of what sort of role can we give this?
The EC2S3.
No, no. I we don't need the EC2S3. We don't need the EC2S3.
Okay.
Let me see. What is that fresh role doing for me? What is fresh role doing for me?
You can check it, right?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Can check it. So we are not using image now. So let's go and check. Um, um, I am. I am. So let's check role. Let me see what the guy is doing for me. Fresh. Let's see what he's doing. Okay, so it has the same access.
Yeah.
It has the same access. So let me see. Which other one do I have? Manage S3 from EC2. Okay, okay. Let me just use this. Let me use this.
Okay.
Yeah, let me use this. Doesn't change anything. Let me use this. So you can for monitoring, you can enable EC2 instance detail monitoring with CloudWatch. It's up to you. Or I believe these ones will require some sort of payment once you use beyond limit. So you can just let's leave it unchecked. So let's go to advanced detail. Let's go to advanced detail. So for this, you see this user data. I'm going to drop it here again. Let me drop the user data for this guy again. So in case it's going to run this, I'm dropping it as a text.
Mm. And it's as well possible as a file.
Is that?
It's as well possible as a file to drop the user data as
Yeah,
well.
yes. You can just create a file on your system like a text file and upload it as a text file to still work. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Okay, so security group. Let's select an existing security group. Let's select an existing security group. So I'm going to use the same security. Let me see. New web server security group. Let me use this. I'm using this. Rules with source 00 we allow IP address to access your instance. We recommend that. So this one we can just we can um we can change this configuration since they will be accessing our EC2 instance directly. We can change these settings later. I mean, we don't want them to access our EC2 instance directly. So I'll just remove the permissions later. So this is not a problem. So let me choose an existing key pair. Choose an existing key pair. I think I wanted to use fresh key pair, I believe. Let me see which one I have in my download. Fresh key pair, yeah. So just click. I acknowledge that I have access to the selected private key pair, but my own is not PEM, sha. Mine is not PEM.
Mm.
Mine is .tpk. So let's create our launch configuration. Okay, our
Okay.
launch configuration has been created. So let's go back to where we are coming from. Launch configuration created successfully. So let's go back to the previous page. I hope you are following.
Yes.
Mm.
So I'll refresh this so that the launch configuration can load up. Chelsea, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So let's move on. I've selected my ASG launch configuration that I created. So look at the summary of the launch configuration. So I'm clicking on next. Then we leave this as default. Then for availability zones. So I'm not going to leave these availability zones as just one or two. I want it to be able to span through different availability zones,
Yeah.
depending on how much resources is being created. You understand? So I'm
Yes.
going to select all these guys.
Okay.
I'm going to select everything. I held my shift key, and I'm selecting them one after the other.
Okay. This is
Yeah.
better just in case it's overcrowded, right?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I said selecting all the zones, it's like better for just in cases of, there's like an overcrowding in
Yeah.
the application.
In case we have a surge.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm selecting everything. So I'm going to click on next. Since I've selected you could see what I did there. I selected all the subnets in the availability zones. I selected everything. So take note of that.
Okay.
So I'm clicking on next. So look at this. It's saying load balancing option. Use the option below to attach your auto scaling group to an existing load balancer. We've created a load balancer, remember. So we are going to attach an existing load balancer here. So I selected attach to an existing load balancer. So choose from your load balancer target group. So I'm going to select this. We have a target group in place. So I selected this. So let's move on. So this one, health check optional. This is auto checked already. So that means health check will be performed on your EC2 instance every now and then. So you can select this if you want to be charged. So we can also enable this if you want, but it comes at a cost. The amount of time CloudWatch metrics for new instances do not contribute to group aggregated as their usage is not reliable yet. So we can leave this and click on next. So this is the only thing I selected here. I selected this. I said choose from your load balancer target group. I selected my load balancer target group. Should attach to an existing load balancer. Yeah. So this is what I did. So you guys should look at it very well and be good with it. So next. So we have gotten to where we are defining what happens. This is where we define what happens. They said this is optional, but this is important for me. This is important. So specify the size of the auto scaling group by changing the desired capacity. You can also specify minimum and maximum capacity limits. Your desired capacity must be within the limit range. Yeah?
Yeah.
So now, what this means is when your EC2 instance is auto scaling, or when auto scaling group kickstart its work, you want a desired capacity of EC2 instance. I would say I want a desired capacity of 2. That means that's my desired capacity. I want at least to have, I want to have a desired capacity of 2. Like, if you are creating, assuming everything is in place and everything is working normally, I want my EC2 instance to be running on 2. Like, I want 2. You
Okay.
understand?
Yeah.
But I want a minimum capacity of 1. Like, it must not be less than 1. Because if it's less than 1, that means we are gone. Our application is gone. So, and I don't want my application to be gone. So, I will leave it as a minimum capacity of 1, but a desired capacity of 2. What would be my maximum capacity?
2.
Hmm?
2.
No. A maximum capacity, I can take it up to 5. I can say I want a maximum capacity of 5. That when it gets to 5, it shouldn't expand anymore. Now,
Okay.
if you leave it at 2, that means once you have once the two servers, the two EC2 instance is overcrowded, that means your application will might not be able to tolerate it anymore, and the application will start getting slower. The application will start getting slower. So you want to avoid that. So I will leave this at 5. Let me put it at 5. You can actually put anything you want, but I will leave it at 5 for the case of this. I mean um for this class. But there are so many metrics I would put in place if I will consider if I were to be deploying it in an enterprise environment. I will look at which kind of application am I deploying. Is it a payment application that requires it to be available almost every time? How many people will be accessing my application? What resources or what's the RAM of my EC2 instance? What's the um what's the storage space? I would put so many things into consideration while defining this capacity. While defining this capacity, I would put so many things into configuration. Into consideration. So assuming it's a payment system, and I know I could have like an internet banking platform, and I could have maybe like 20,000 people accessing my application like at the same time, or let me say within an hour, I could have 20,000 people accessing my application. I would want the EC2 instance to span up to, or maybe like 7 or 8 because people accessing the application might be more than that at a particular point in time. So I can give it a maximum capacity of maybe like 7, 8, 9, 10, depending on my crowd. Depending on my crowd. You know, people like Google, companies like Google now, you know the number of people that access Google almost like every minute. You could have
Yeah.
maybe like 100,000 people accessing. I'm just saying, you might have more than that. 100,000 people accessing Google at once. You know, if the capacity is not in place, Google will just be going down anyhow. The application will just be going down anyhow. So I'm sure for Google, they might have provisioned maybe like maximum capacity of 100. Say, as much as people are coming in, let it keep expanding. Let it keep expanding. But for this case of this class, I'll leave it at 5. But I hope you got my explanation on this. That's the
Yeah.
most important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on. So this scaling policy is optional. We might so target tracking scaling policy. Choose whether to use a scaling policy to dynamically size the auto scaling loop to meet demand to meet changes in demand. So this is telling us to create a policy, a scaling policy. So I don't think I'm not doing that. I'm not creating any policy. So this one that we have created is okay for us. Is okay for us. This one that we have created is okay for us. So let's move on. So instance scaling protection. Enable instance scaling protection. If protect scaling is enabled, newly launched instances will be protected from scaling by default. So we are not enabling this as well. This is saying if this is enabled, when you launch new instance, they will be protected from scaling by default. Like you won't be able to remove them by default. They will be protected from scaling by default. So no, I'm not selecting that. So I'm clicking on next. So let's see. Now we can add a notification. You can add notification, and you can create a topic of your own. I'll create a new topic so that you can see how it works.
Okay.
So I can create a topic to say send a notification to um what's that my rate cube 0101 at gmail.com. I know. Hold on. Send a notification to. Okay. This is going to be the topic. Auto scaling. You can name it anything. Auto scaling topic. I'll just put it like that. So send to this email address. So what are the event type I'm expecting? When I launch my auto scaling group, you should send a notification to this. When I terminate it, send a notification to this. When it fails to launch, when auto scaling group fails to launch my EC2 instance, send a mail to this. When it fails to terminate, send a mail to. So that's what I'm trying to configure here. So I'm just trying to keep myself informed of what is happening in my environment, on my auto scaling group. So that's what this means. I hope you got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep myself informed. So I'm going to click on next. You can add as many notifications as possible based on your own preference. So I'm going to click on next. Then it says I should add tag. I'm not adding any tag. So let's see what we have done so far. Let's see what we have done. Remember, the desired capacity is 2, minimum capacity is 1, maximum capacity is 5. So let me see. Scaling policy. Okay, we didn't do anything there. So I'm going to create my auto scaling group now. So, boom. My auto scaling group has been created successfully. Now, how do we know that auto scaling group is working? How do we know that it's working? Let's go to our instance. We are scaling our instance now. Yeah, so let's go to our instance. Are we on instance? So let's click instances. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Can you see that it's creating instance by itself?
Yes.
Yeah, this is because it's auto scaling by. So I selected a minimum of 2. So it added 2 more because assuming I put a maximum of probably 2.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go more than 2. But because my maximum is 5, so it dropped at 3. I already have 1 running. So it picked it up. It picked 2 up to create. So these 2 are currently running. So let's see, by the time it's checked past, let's see if our application would be accessible. Then one more thing that we'll go and check is if our load balancer is working. You remember that we didn't add any target group to our load balancer.
Yeah, we didn't.
We didn't add any. We had the target group, but we didn't add any instance to the target group. So let's see if it would load balance the application. So this is still initializing. Then once this is working, and we are able to, I will show us something as well. I'll show us something.
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know if it's relevant or not.
Right.
But
Right.
are there like any situations where instances fails to terminate?
Fails to terminate.
Yeah.
Fails to terminate.
Yeah.
Like you try to terminate it, is not terminating.
Because like the event type you ticked, when it fails to terminate or launch or whatever, you should get an alert, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, are there like
Okay, like when you try to terminate, yeah, of course. I will try to terminate one instance now. Let's see if it terminates.
Okay.
I will try to terminate one of the instances. In fact, I might terminate the 3 of them, sir. So let's see what action will happen after I terminate the 3 of them.
Okay.
So let me see which one is checked past now. Okay, this one is checked past. So let's see if it's running. Let's see. Let's try to run it. Let's see if it's going to run. I expect that it's going to run. Can you see that my application is running?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's running. Let me take it a step back. So this guy should be up soon. Okay, so now let's go and check our load balancer. Let's see if load balancer is working.
Okay.
Let's see, where's my load balancer? So I'm going to copy this. Let's see. Not. Can you see that my load balancer is working?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the way auto scaling group handles that part. Auto scaling group handles that part instead of me adding like a like pre-configuring two applications to two EC2 instance to run on load balancer. I didn't pre-configure anything. I allowed the auto scaling group to handle that part. So um the more the EC2 instance added by the load balance by the auto scaling group, the more the work this load balancer has to do by shortening the between the three created server or the number of servers created. So that's the way it works. So okay, I think I wanted to streamline. Let me see. Load. No, it's not it. I wanted to streamline what access. Let me see what is on the load balance. EC2. If you understand what I'm saying, what once I get there, EC2. We're almost done.
Okay.
So I'm clicking on load balancer. So I'm just going to streamline permissions. Once I streamline permission, I would delete some instance like 2 or 3 instances, and let's see what happens after that. Okay, so I want to I'm looking for that um security group. Okay, so load balance SG. I'm looking for that security group. So I wanted to streamline that permission EC2. Okay, so security group, load balanced SG. Load balanced SG. So this is the guy. So let's go into it. Let's see what permission is currently running with. Do you understand what I'm trying to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. New web server security group. So let's go and edit that. I don't want people to access my application via. So I'm going to delete this and this, and I'm going to add this HTTP. This is going to be load balance SG. Where are you? Load balance SG. Load balance. Is it? Then HTTPS as well. Trying to streamline permissions so that just anybody will not be accessing my application server directly. So I'm saving the rules now. So definitely with this that I've done now, nobody will be able to access my application using the server's URL or with the load balance, except with the load balancer as well. So let's see if this. So this is working fine. This is working fine, which is, of course, is what we want. This is what we want. This is what we want. This is fine now. I'm not closing this. Okay, so what else? What else? What else? What else? My EC2. Let's see how many EC2 instance I have now. Let's see how many instance I have running. Okay, so um I have just one instance running now. So that means it has downscaled. Is that not it?
Yeah,
Let me
I
see it
think.
very well. It has downscaled because nobody is using those resources. So it has downscaled. But normally I should have at least two. That's my desired is what I should have. But I think it's not a problem since I have a minimum. So what I will do, let me see. Let me see the name of this guy. Web server. So I want to delete this guy. I want to terminate this guy. Let me terminate this guy. Let's see what will happen. Can you see that I've terminated this guy?
Yeah,
So let's see what happens. Can you see that immediately to okay, this guy did not go up before.
yeah.
Is it like I didn't scroll down?
Nah, I think you did, but it wasn't
But these
displaying.
two guys are running now.
Yeah.
So let me terminate this guy as well. I'll terminate the second one as well. I'm terminating the second one now. So that means I've terminated two now. So let me refresh. Let's see what is happening. Okay, so let's see what is going to happen. Let's just give it a few seconds more. And I think how many minutes did I think I put 300 seconds. I think I put 300 seconds for it to come up. So let's wait. Let's wait. Let's see what auto scaling group will do. At least we have one running now. So let's see what auto scaling group will do. I think I specified 300 seconds. Anyway, so let's wait. So once I'm done with this, we are done for this class. So I've taken you through auto scaling group. Please, guys, please help. Like, I want to see you guys at the top of this game. I want to see you at the very top. So just practice. That's all you need. Just practice this thing. Practice it again and again. You understand the concept. Practice. Because you can't be taking theory up and down. It has to be true hands-on. You have to do it and do it well. You have to do it and do it well. We are waiting for this guy to come up. I'm expecting that one. Look at it. That started one. Can you see that?
Yeah.
That started
Yeah.
that started another instance. So this is as expected. That started another instance. So this guy will come up fully now, and this is what I'm expecting, and it has worked. That means my system is auto scaling. My application is auto scaling. It's auto scaling by itself. So by the time resources goes up, it's automatically auto scale by itself. So because I chose um a desired what's it called? Um a desired capacity of two. Yeah, that was why it brought up the second one as well. So let me refresh. It's initializing. So if I want to terminate everything now, if I want to terminate everything, if I want to terminate everything, and guys, I received mails. I received mails on my greatcube.com. I received mails.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
they,
terminated it, right?
yeah. In fact, when my EC2 instance got up, I got a mail for me to
Okay.
confirm this. It told me to confirm. So if once I click on confirm, it will start sending me other mails. But I am not going to click on confirm. So you can try it at your own end and click on confirm. I'm not going to click on anything confirm.
Okay.
So what they will first send to you is a confirmation mail to allow the service that they have choose to start running. So once you confirm, they will start sending you um subsequent mails, subsequent notifications. So, but I'm not going to confirm anything. So this one has been checked pass as well. So we are good. We are good now. So guys, just practice more. That's all you need, and trust me, you'll be there. You'll be there. So the two of you should prepare for weekend. I mean, on Sunday, like we agreed. So you are going to be um running the demo. So if you can do it up to this extent, I'll be glad. So you take us through and let's see when you delete how it auto scales and stuff like that. So just do it to this point. I'll be happy. And I believe if we are able to get if Mr. Mark too will be on the call that day. So if he's able to bring in somebody that is looking for a cloud computing person, you guys might hit your jackpot from there. I'm not promising anything, but it might definitely happen. It's possible. Nothing is impossible. So just put in your A game and be able to confidently do what you have been practicing. Like explain what you have been practicing. That's all.
Okay.
So any other question before we close this class?
About the internet gateway,
Yeah,
which you described here today, like on the diagram. Like, I
yeah.
wanted you to explain that because I can remember the last class you said something about the firewall and the security group, and here again, there's the internet gateway. So, does the firewall and security group has to do with this as well, or not?
Okay, now, like I said, internet gateway um is attached to the public network. So by the time I'm explaining VPC, virtual private cloud,
Yeah.
you will get more understanding of the networking part of AWS, the networking part of AWS. Because if I explain now the way it works is now you have a VPC, you can create a public subnet and a private subnet in a VPC, and of course you are deploying your EC2 instance inside either public subnet or the private subnet. You can deploy other things as well, such as RDS, your relational database system, in private network because your database should not be accessible by just anybody. You have some applications as well that only resides in the private network, of course, based on your own configuration. There are several ways you can deploy applications such that it only needs like an internet gateway to for people on the internet to have access to it. So now, the reason why internet gateway comes in, and of course, which is attached to the public network, is because now, if these guys are trying to access your application, let me show you something. Let me show you where the internet gateway is. Let me see where do we have subnet? Um, Let me see. Can we go into it from here? I want to show you something. Can we go into it from here? Can we go into it from here? Okay, let me go to VPC. Let me quickly show you because we have a VPC running already.
Mm.
We are running on default VPC presently.
Yes.
So we can actually see how the routing table works. So look at this. This is the VPC. Let's load up. Okay. So click on your VPC. So this is the default VPC that we are currently using. Now, under subnets, we have different subnets created already that we are working with. Now, for you to know whether you are working with a private or a public subnet, what will you do? This is what you can do to know whether you are working. And I believe all these guys should probably be a public subnet. And the only way I can know is I'll select this and go down here. Go down here. I'll click on my route table. I'll click on my route table. So look at this. Anywhere you see IGW
Yeah.
on your route table, that means that subnet is a public subnet.
Okay.
Is a public. This is IGW, Internet Gateway, is what it means. IGW means Internet Gateway, and you can see the destination.
Yeah.
You recognize this, Abi? This is internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anywhere you see IGW on your route table for a subnet, that means it's a public subnet. So peradventure somebody asks you, how can you identify a public subnet? Just straightforward. You have the answer straightforward. You select the subnet and check the route table. If it has IGW, Internet Gateway, that means it's a public subnet. That means it's a public subnet. So I believe this guy should be a public subnet as well because it's been on default. So assuming we created, so it's going to be, so this guy is a public subnet as well. I think everything should be public. Everything should be public. Public. Let me see. Everything should be public, yeah? Look at this. It has internet gateway attached. So let me check the last one as well.
What about the local? Like, what does that mean? Is it like a local network or something?
Local is your connection to the VPC.
Okay.
Yeah, is your IP connect. I mean your connection to the VPC itself. You know, like this diagram explains, your subnet is inside a VPC. Is residing inside the VPC, virtual private cloud.
Okay.
So the connection to the VPC is that local.
Okay.
So the public network, I mean the internet gateway has its own connection as well. So once that connection is initiated, of course, people from the internet will be able to access. So now, this private subnets, their own connection is what we call NAT, NAT gateway. They connect through the NAT gateway. So if you want to access, which of course it happens some of the time, if you want to access the internet from a private, I've taken you to the class that you are supposed to have in the next 2 weeks or thereabouts. So that's what that's part of what I'm explaining right now, which of course I don't want to go into much of it, but at least you understand what internet gateway is. So if a private subnet wants to access the internet, what it will do, because on its own routing table, it's not going to have internet gateway on its own routing table. On its own route table, it won't have internet gateway. What it has is a NAT. So what you will do is connect to the internet via the NAT gateway. So NAT gateway will be attached to the public network. So private subnets can connect via the NAT gateway to the internet. And it's going to be a one-way connection. It's going to be a one-way connection. Peradventure, like you install the database on a private network now, a relational database system on it, which we will do the next class. By the time we come next class, if you install a relational database system here, and you want to probably fetch updates for the database, like a new patch has been released and you want to update the database environment, you would need a connection to the internet. So that connection would go through the net gateway to the internet. I mean, to the internet, which has been configured on the public networks routed. When we get there with small diagrams, you will understand. But that's how it works.
Okay. And for the load balancing, you said usually we needed to like add instances for it to run, but because of the ASG, there's no need for that. Like, right?
Yeah, for the load balancer, yeah, of course, you have already provisioned we provisioned one instance, you remember?
Yeah.
We provisioned one instance, but for the application to be load balanced, because we want to use ASG, we did not add the instance to the target group. We left the target group open to accept anything that the ASG has to offer. So we left it open. So by the time you watch the video again, you understand better. So
Okay.
you won't add anything when you are creating your target group under load balance. I mean, in the process of creating load balancer, you get to a point where you need to create a target group where your traffic will be routing to. You understand? But at that point, we are not going to add any instance to the target group because we want the ASG auto scaling group to handle that part. We want it to handle the part of creating more instances. So by the time the instances are being created, and of course, load balancer has been attached to auto scaling group as well with the target. They have been attached to the auto scaling group. So the sync is already in place for it to handle any scaling that is going to happen within the environment, whether
Okay.
up or down.
Okay.
Right. Do I explain that well?
Yeah. I'm just writing that down so I won't
Okay.
forget.
Chelsea,
Yeah.
any question before we go?
No question.
Okay. Okay. So